not just about what happens on our doorsteps, but what is done in our name, because I say not in my name, and how governments speak, act and lead. Now, I want to say a quote from the late Tony Benn. It speaks to a different issue, yes, but the principle remains the same. The way a government treats refugees is very instructive, because it shows you how they would treat the rest of us if they thought they would get away with it. What you allow your governments to do to others, it will eventually do to you, whether that is silence, complicity or positive action. Our Scottish Government has shown compassion, direction and bravery. It's one of the many reasons I am proud to stand here today with the SNP. These values of justice, humanity and peace are embedded in who we are. That is why we must look to the Westminster Government and say shame. Shame on your months of silence. Shame on your complicity. Shame on you. Keir Starmer, you finally recognised a genocide. We have a ceasefire, but it's a little too late. And words alone are not enough. Recognition must be followed by action, ending complicity in any crimes taking place and ensuring that this ceasefire is not violated. What we watched should not be normalised. We were seeing civilians, innocent civilians, bombed in their beds, starved of their bread, streets that once echoed with life, now filled with ash and anguish. Families forced to flee, risking death at sea because the land behind them holds certain death. UNICEF estimates that Gaza now has more child amputees than anywhere else in the world. That alone should move everyone to act. And let me be clear, Netanyahu's government is harming both Palestinian and Jewish lives. The Hamas attack on 7th of October was horrific, an act of terror that we will always condemn. But genocide and starvation cannot be the response. Continued occupation is not the road to peace, and it is not the way to a two-state solution. Two truths can exist at once, as my colleague said. This motion calls for rigorous human rights screening to be a condition of all public funding, and it looks ahead to an independent Scotland that stands proudly for peace, for justice and for human rights. Hate is on the rise, fuelled by war, silence and inaction. But our government's response reflects who we are. It is why I trust that our values, our policies and our response will continue to strive to protect human dignity. Thank you, Conference.
Conference, can we pass Resolution 27 by acclaim, please? Right, colleagues, we're moving on to two topical resolutions this afternoon. We will have to accept a formal seconder for both topicals because time is short and we are all waiting for our leader's speech this afternoon. Nonetheless, we do need to give these topicals the space that they deserve. So in that vein, can I invite Councillor Samita Kumar, who is the candidate for Edinburgh Southern Western, who is going to speak to topical resolution.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Conference. Conference, Labour's proposal for a digital ID system, the so-called Brit card, is not progress. It's a political shortcut dressed up as security. And it tells people like you and I that no matter what we feel, how long we have lived here, no matter how much we've given, we still have to prove we belong. But identity isn't something you log into. It isn't a barcode. It's not a QR code to be scanned or a number to be stored on a database. It's not something that should depend on whether your phone works or whether your signal drops or whether you can navigate yet another complex government app. For many, especially older people, disabled people, new Scots, complex digital systems don't offer freedom. They build walls, they turn public services into checkpoints. They say, you're welcome, but only if the system says so. Conference, I'm proudly born in Fiji Islands. My heritage is a melting pot of so many ethnicities and culture. Let's just say it's ever so slightly complicated, thanks in no part to the British Empire. But complexity shouldn't be treated as a problem to solve or a risk to manage. Complexity is human, it's history, it's me. My family and I have lived in Scotland for over 21 years. We have built our lives here, we've worked, we've studied, we've volunteered, celebrated, and sadly, we've also mourned here. We've paid our taxes, we've made friends, we've raised the next generation here. Sometimes I even struggle with the word or the label New Scots because, honestly, I don't feel new. I feel what I already am, simply Scottish. Conference, the one thing I will never identify as, unfortunately, is British. So Keir Starmer, I hope you're listening. I'm not British. And like my friends, my neighbours, and hopefully this conference, I am proudly, fully, fearlessly Scottish. This digital ID scheme won't make us safer. It will make us smaller. It will say to people, you need to earn your place, you need to show your card, you need to prove your worth before we accept you. And that is just not the Scotland we live in. We are in a Scotland that believes in inclusion and compassion. We don't measure belonging through paperwork or passwords. We measure it through people, through kindness, through solidarity, and the way we look out for one another. And conference, that is what is at stake here. Because once we normalize carrying a state-issued digital pass to prove who we are, we open the door to something far more dangerous. It's not safety, it's control. A digital ID will not build trust, it will erode it. It will not create unity, it will divide it. It will not make us stronger, it will shrink us. We cannot allow anyone, not Westminster, not Whitehall, and especially not Labour, to tell Scotland who belongs within her borders. So, the choice between carrying a Brit card or setting up the kind of Scotland we believe in, then conference, I know exactly where we stand. Let's condemn Labour. Let's reject their digital ID. Please accept this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samita, and I'm very grateful to our Paisley buddy George Adam for waiving his rights to speak and for agreeing to formally second the resolution, the topical resolution 2 that was on the screen earlier. And can I put it to conference that the resolution is accepted by acclaim? And can I now invite Kevin Stewart, MSP, who's going to speak to topical resolution 3, condemning proposed cuts to local journalism in Aberdeen. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Convener, and thank you, Conference. And I realise that I'm the person that is keeping the leader away from his speech, so I'll be very brief. But this is an extremely important issue that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. Because for those of us that live in the north and the northeast, STV North News is immensely important. Many of us remember the glory days of Grampian TV. And when STV took over, they pledged that licence would always be kept separate. STV North would be different from STV Central. But now our news service is under attack, and journalists right across STV are facing redundancy, some 60 jobs. And I have to say that that is not good enough. Now, STV boss Rufus Radcliffe appeared at the Culture Committee this week. Not a sparkling performance by Rufus, I have to say. But there was one thing that I agreed with him on, and he said that the truth is at risk in a world where many are getting news on social media. So when he admits that the truth is at risk, why is it that trusted journalists are about to lose their jobs? And I tell you, conference, they are trusted journalists. The STV North News team managed to get an audience share of 40%. 40% in this day and age, which is quite unbelievable. They are trusted. Andrea Brymer, Norman MacLeod, Tyrone Smith, Chris Harvey. 40% audience share. Fantastic stuff. And I have to say that they do that appear on our screens every night, given very, very good, high-quality news. And for those of you that live in STV Central, don't think that you will be unaffected by this if STV gets their way, because you will get less local news too if everybody has to have their news broadcast from Glasgow. And we are in a situation whereby all of this has come about because of a small £200,000 loss. A £200,000 loss, but £3 million worth of cuts. And Mr Radcliffe and managers are not going to be affected by this. Mr Radcliffe will still continue to collect his £450,000 a year salary plus bonuses. He won't be affected. Neither will managers. And that is not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Let him take the pay cut. Let him take the pay cut. And I'll finish on this, convener, because the new licences for STV North and STV Central were signed on the 1st of January this year, a mere few months ago. So why is it now that they are saying that STV News North has to go, that cuts across the company are going to happen? Why did they not admit all of these difficulties before those licences were renewed? And to Ofcom, I say, you must step in here. There must be a 12-week consultation period, and you must listen to the people who value STV News North. Thank you.
Colleagues, I'm very grateful to Jackie Dunbar for agreeing to formally second this topical resolution, and can I put it to you that we accept it by acclaim, please?
It's about believing in a better future. Here in Scotland, it's about doing things differently. That's what my leadership and the SNP Scottish Government offers. For too long, the wrong choices have been made at Westminster. Bills rising faster than wages. Scotland is treated as an afterthought. But when Scotland makes the choices, hope grows. Hope is believing in our children, free childcare to help parents, university without tuition fees, and lifting families out of poverty. Hope is easing the burden. Pensioners collecting free prescriptions. Young people travelling to school and to work for free. Scottish families paying less in council tax than the rest of the UK. And peak rail fares scrapped for as long as the SNP is in government. Hope is protecting what matters most. Waiting times now getting shorter, GP numbers increasing, care based on need, not ability to pay. Hope is investing in our future, standing up to unfair energy prices and demanding that our renewable energy is used to reduce bills and power thriving communities. Westminster keeps making the wrong choices. Rising bills, stagnant wages, the damage of Brexit and brutal cuts. Labour offers no better than the Tories. And Nigel Farage is looming on the horizon. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can put Scotland's energy in Scotland's hands. We can repair the damage done by Brexit. We can end the Westminster chaos and reclaim our future. The people of Scotland, not Westminster politicians, will be in control. That is independence. That is the fresh start Scotland needs. Stand with me to create the nation you want Scotland to be.
Good afternoon, delegates. It's my great pleasure now to introduce our final speaker at the Scottish National Party's 91st Annual Conference. And I remember the first time I introduced the next speaker, when I finished the introduction, I walked away with a speech afterwards. So hopefully I won't do that this time. I think these last few days in Aberdeen have shown our party at its very best, engaging in debate, exchanging ideas, working towards a fresh start for Scotland and with the full powers of independence. And the success of our conference is testament to each and every one of you, because our party's strength, as we said before, comes from our membership. No other party in Scotland would have a hall full like this at their party conference. No other party in Scotland would have a debate like the one that we had on the future strategy for our party. And I'm very pleased, especially with those individuals that proposed amendments, had concerns about that strategy, who came up and spoke to me afterwards and said, it's no longer the strategy of John Swinney and Keith Brown, it's the party strategy and we'll get right behind it. That shows what kind of party we are. Our next speaker joined the SNP at 15 years old. By 22, he was our youngest ever National Secretary. And how about commitment to the cause of that kind of longevity? He's been an impassioned campaigner for Scottish independence his whole life, and his dedication to working for a better Scotland for everyone who lives here is without question. He served the people of Perthshire for nearly 3 decades. He served the people of this nation in the Scottish Government for 17 years. And now he leads our nation as First Minister. Friends, when our party needed him, John Swinney stepped up. As was said by someone this morning, he stands head and shoulders above the opposition. With the 2026 Holyrood election now firmly in our sights, the SNP boasts an election-winning machine and the most formidable political leader on these islands. Conference, it's with great pride that I welcome my very dear friend, the First Minister, our party leader, John Swinney.
Friends, what a conference we have had. What a wonderful welcome we've received here in Aberdeen. And what a great result last night, albeit slightly nerve-wracking. Winning certainly suits Scotland, and conference winning for Scotland is what this party is all about. I want to talk about where we're going as a country. Right now, the choice is a simple and a stark one. We must not resign ourselves to a future defined by Brexit or by sky-high bills. And delegates, We are certainly not going to allow Keir Starmer or any Westminster politician to define us by Brit cards. We must define our own future, a future where we devote all of our resources to transforming the lives of people in Scotland, where our immense energy wealth puts money into people's pockets, not into the coffers of Westminster's Treasury or the offshore bank accounts of billionaires. A future where the poverty that has blighted lives for far too long is not swept under the carpet, but instead is swept out of Scotland, where our National Health Service is freed once and for all from the threat of creeping Westminster privatisation. Conference independence offers Scotland a fresh start. This is a moment of decision. We all face a choice: decline, decay and Westminster and despair with Westminster Government, or hope, optimism and ambition with Scottish self-government. This is the moment for us to realise the true potential we have as a nation. Now is the time for Scotland to become independent. Delegates, on Saturday we showed how serious we are about achieving that goal by agreeing our strategy to get us there. We did so through reasoned, respectful and spirited discussion. In a world where democracy is under threat, I think it's safe to say that democracy is alive and well and thriving in the Scottish National Party. And it is democracy that will now take us forward. Our task is to win a majority of seats in the Scottish Parliament. We are going to break the logjam in Scottish politics. Delegates, I know that things are not easy for a lot of people right now. Times are tough. We've had the financial crash, austerity, Brexit, the cost of living crisis. And through all those tough times, through all the storms of recent history, it's become crystal clear: Westminster does not work for Scotland. And I'll tell you what does work for Scotland. Self-government works for Scotland, and SNP government works for Scotland. We are a government that fights for Scotland every single day. That's what I offer. That's what the SNP offer at the election. Not a branch office beholden to London, but a government wholly owned by and wholly serving the people of Scotland. People need a government that will back them 100%. A few months ago, hundreds of workers at Alexander Dennis faced redundancy. An iconic bus manufacturer was planning to close its doors in Scotland. Labour stood back, offering nothing but press releases, platitudes and posturing, just like at Grangemouth. But your SNP government got to work. We rolled up our sleeves and we brought the company, the trade unions and the workforce together, and we're backing them with public investment. That is the power of self-government. Scotland at its best, and hundreds of high-quality jobs saved for the people of Scotland. I say it again because it's a winning formula. Self-government works and SNP government works. Just look at what we are achieving. Free childcare provision more than doubled. Council tax bills lowest in the UK. Water bills lowest in the UK. Income tax, most paying less, the highest earners paying more. Prescriptions, free. University tuition, free. Bus travel, free for under 22s. Peak fares on our trains, gone and gone for good. Waiting times down. GP numbers up. Record numbers of hip and knee operations on our streets. Crime down. In our schools, literacy and numeracy up. Record numbers heading to college or university, and conference, child poverty in Scotland at its lowest level in 3 decades. That is the SNP record. That is self-government making lives better in Scotland. But what about Westminster? They once said things could only get better. But on day one, Keir Starmer changed his tune. He now says things are only going to get worse. That's not what people voted for. But delegates, he's got fawn. Keir Starmer promised to be a left-wing Labour leader, and then he became a right-wing Prime Minister. He stole Jeremy Corbyn's clothes, and now he's dressing up as Nigel Farage. He hasn't even tried to implement the progressive policies that people backed him for. This vacuous Labour government is a symptom of a wider problem, a Westminster system that is broken and broken beyond repair. Labour and Tories are locked in a race to the right, a race that will only be won by Nigel Farage. Fear of Farage is driving Westminster to more and more extreme views. Brexit was bad enough. Now we face climate change denial. We face talk of mass deportations, even the ripping up of human rights laws. Delegates, let me be clear. Scotland's rights are not Westminster's to give away. Ideas that once seemed unthinkable are now common currency. That is Westminster's obsession. Not your rising shopping bills, not your kids' future, not your parents' care. Westminster has never been more out of touch with people's everyday concerns. It has never been clearer for Westminster, Scotland is only ever an afterthought. As well as being morally wrong, Westminster's race to the right is also deeply damaging to our society. The number of nurses the National Health Service was able to recruit from overseas fell by 80% last year. 80%. And in July, Westminster shut down the visa route for social care workers. They even withdrew job offers that had already been promised. As a result, thousands of care workers here in the UK, entirely legally, have been left high and dry, unable to work, while care homes are crying out for staff. In what world does that make any sense whatsoever? Well, delegates, I've got a solution. I can announce today that the Scottish Government is stepping in. We will sponsor these skilled staff so they can work, pay tax, and help keep Scotland's care homes running. Hundreds of dedicated workers able to start work immediately. Scotland's older people must not pay the price for Westminster's prejudice. Conference, Westminster isn't working for Scotland. Self-government works for Scotland, and an SNP government works for Scotland too. Scotland is a welcoming nation, and we've always been an outward-looking nation. In all my years in politics, I can think of few who've embodied this ability to look outwards, more than the late and much-missed George Reid. George, of course, played an absolutely pivotal role in both the early breakthrough of the SNP and in the early years of our national parliament. But beyond our shores, he was widely known and respected for his humanitarian work. In tense situations, he brought people together. He gave hope to those who had none. I learned so much from George. We all did. And delegates, let's resolve today to carry on George's legacy, to bring empathy and compassion to everything we do, and to always, always fight for a better Scotland and a better world. In today's world, it feels like the values that George espoused are more important than ever. That means standing up to brutal dictators like Vladimir Putin, and conference standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine. And it means that even in the most desperate of wars, we must hold on to the hope that an end to the killing is possible, hope that things can be better. And today has seen welcome signs that hope is beginning to bear fruit. For the first time since the terrible events of October the 7th, the people of Palestine and Israel have hope for peace. The pictures of hostages being released, of families being reunited, of refugees returning to their homes are deeply moving, deeply humbling. They remind us that even in the darkest of days, hope can prevail. But we must also remember how that is achieved. For hope to prevail, people have to step up, and they do. The campaigners, the aid workers, the political leaders, and the brave, brave journalists risking their lives to tell the world of the genocide in Gaza. They have stepped up. Now, we must all step up to secure the peace, to turn hope into reality for Israel and Palestine, for the displaced, the distraught and the destitute. Aid must flow. Every life is sacred and of equal value. Every family, whether Palestinian or Israeli, deserves to live in peace and dignity. A two-state solution must be delivered. Peace must prevail. Peace is a long-term project, and it sometimes requires far-sighted investment. International development is very often the first line of defence, the defence against conflict, population displacement and humanitarian catastrophe. It is not a luxury. But at Westminster, Labour have slashed overseas aid. And unbelievably, the Labour Prime Minister used his conference speech to boast about the fact. We've got a very different view of the world. Tomorrow, I travel to Zambia and Malawi to mark the 20th anniversary of Scotland's international aid programme, and I am very proud to be doing so. In recent years, we've increased funding and expanded the scope of Scotland's international development efforts. Our funding has helped to build operating rooms for children's hospitals, support climate initiatives, and ensure children, in particular girls, can attend school. With full self-government, we could, of course, do so much more. The UK was once so proud of its international development programme, but now they all seem to be ashamed of it. That in itself is shameful. Labour is delivering less than half of the UN target for international development, slashing money for those most in need. But conference, with Westminster, of course, there's always billions for weapons of mass destruction. Delegates, let's be absolutely clear. An independent Scotland would proudly do her duty as a global citizen, and we will do it without the obscenity of nuclear weapons on the River Clyde. Conference. In tough and uncertain times, it is more important than ever to stand by your values. That's why the values of our leaders matter. In May, I will ask the people of this country to elect me as the First Minister of Scotland for the next 5 years. Our people are entitled to know what has made me who I am today and what that means for how I will take Scotland forward. A few months ago, the national newspaper asked me the 10 things that had shaped my life. I talked about the safe and secure start to my life given to me by my loving parents. I talked of following the exciting debates in the 1970s about establishing a Scottish Assembly, and from the disappointment of that moment, joining the Scottish National Party to change Scotland for the better. I even talked about my favourite band, The Jam, the seminal music for me from the 1980s, which I still listen to when I'm running these days. For me, their most iconic song has always been Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. That's an anthem that rails against the evils of fascism, against which I will always, always stand firm. I talked of meeting my wife Elizabeth, without whom I can do nothing of what I do today. I talked of my faith, of doing unto others only what I would have done to me. I talked of Scotland's islands, where I find peace in my life, walking the golden sands of the beaches of Tiree, of Harris, of my granny's home in Orkney, surrounded by the turquoise waters, the precious inheritance we have in Scotland that we must cherish. I talked about becoming a dad, and this year, for the first time, a granddad, and why it makes me so determined to do the best I can for the country that comes after me, the country that our children and our grandchildren will inherit. That's why becoming First Minister is such a privilege. It is the ultimate opportunity to serve the people of this country. That, my friends, is who I am. A son of our capital city, honoured to have represented one of the most beautiful parts of rural Scotland for almost 3 decades. A man shaped by all of Scotland. That is who the Scottish National Party will ask the people of our country to vote for as First Minister. It is the honour of my life to be First Minister. But let me in you into a secret. I'm just getting started. When I lead the SNP into the election next year, I will be seeking my own mandate from the people of Scotland, a mandate to fundamentally transform our country for the long term. I will continue to be a leader who listens in order to lead. There is no more important issue to all of us than our National Health Service. We all use it. I use it. My family uses it. And we will be forever grateful for what the NHS does for us. Yes, there are challenges, but we've all heard directly from people who praise our NHS staff and are positive about their treatment in the National Health Service. More and more people are being seen. Waiting lists are falling. More appointments are taking place. There are more operations and more GPs. But one key issue is the ATM rush for appointments. We want to make it easier for people to see a GP where and when it works for them. That's why I can announce today that the SNP government will open a nationwide network of walk-in GP services based in your community, on your local high street, near your child's school or close to your workplace. They will break from the status quo. They will add to the care we already value, staffed by GPs and nurses, open from 12 noon to 8 p.m, and you won't need to call up for an appointment. That means more people can go after work when it fits with their lives. And to make that even easier, they'll be open 7 days a week. This is just the start. We will expand this network, but it will begin with 15 sites across Scotland. They will deliver over 1 million additional GP and nurse appointments, and the first will be up and running within the year. That is personalised care on your doorstep. That is self-government working. That's the SNP government working for Scotland. The Scottish National Party is thinking and acting in these new radical ways to respond to people's key concerns. It's why we brought in the Scottish National Investment Bank, the baby box, the Scottish Child Payment. It's why we used hard-won powers to get rid of the two-child cap, at the same time as Labour was disciplining its MPs for daring to agree. And believe me, Conference, we won't stop there. This party is and always has been, at its core, Scotland's true radicals. But while we're championing the new, Westminster insists on sticking to the old ways of doing things. There is a Westminster consensus that so often works against Scotland. It's why, in a land of plenty, life is still unaffordable for too many Scots. Because on Westminster's watch, the basic essentials of life, energy, food and more are becoming more and more expensive. In many ways, the deep-seated problems facing the UK right now are a culmination of decades of failed Thatcherite economics. An entire system accepted by the Westminster parties of being intensely relaxed about some people becoming filthy rich while everyone else struggles to get by. It was in part Scottish revulsion at the policies of Margaret Thatcher that catapulted Scotland towards the creation of a Scottish Parliament and the rebirth of self-government. We became, in Westminster language, a devolved nation. Today, I believe it will be revulsion at Westminster's race to the right that will change Scotland's status again from a so-called devolved nation to what we can be, a modern, outward-looking, inclusive, compassionate country, not a devolved nation, but the world's newest independent nation. that is the fresh start Scotland needs. Decisions about Scotland should be taken by the people of Scotland. No one else will do a better job of caring for this beautiful country than the people who live here. And I mean all the people who live here. Wherever you are from, whatever your faith, whatever the colour of your skin, let me make this clear. We are all citizens. We all have a part to play and a contribution to make. And Conference, yes, I am proud to say that refugees are welcome here. The race to the right at Westminster is one reason why independence is so urgent and necessary. Living standards in the UK have flatlined, and the promised improvements from electing a Labour government at Westminster have simply not happened. Just look at our energy bills. We were all promised a cut of £300, but what has Keir Starmer's government delivered? An increase of almost £200. Sky-high energy bills in one of the most energy-rich countries in the world. For Scotland, Great British Energy is fast proving to be the Great British rip-off. Delegates, it's time for a new approach. This week, the Scottish Government published a detailed prospectus for independence, how our economy could work, our migration system, our route back to the EU, our place in the world, and how we would build a new nation. The work has been done, but Conference, more than that, we've set out the potential for Scotland to be a very different kind of country. There is so much to be hopeful about as a new nation state. For countries of Scotland's size, the golden combination is the policy power of independence together with membership of the European Union. Scotland is fortunate. Our golden combination can be independence, Europe, and our vast low-cost renewable energy. Even without our advantages, independent countries, just like Scotland, Denmark, Ireland, Finland, Austria and others, are all wealthier than the UK, fairer than the UK, all have lower rates of poverty, all have higher rates of investment. Conference, we often pose the question, if all these countries can be so successful, why not Scotland? But for me, it's time to be much, much more assertive. It's time to stop asking the question. It's time to proclaim with confidence, if all those countries can be wealthier and fairer than the UK, then so can Scotland. There are some who say that the 21st century is heralding a return to an era of big powers. It is true that the biggest states often attract most of the attention. But look past the headlines and look at what's really going on. Because the reality is this. In the 21st century, it is the European states the size of Scotland that are enjoying the biggest successes. It is they who have the flexibility to target their resources and adapt. It is they who are upholding the rules-based system and the commitment to human rights, backed by the security of the EU, international cooperation and mutual respect. In this era of enormous global change, where the world has become so much smaller and technology advancing at such a rate, it is clear that cooperation to tackle the great challenges of the day is needed more than ever. And that, my friends, is the simple and stark choice facing Scotland. We choose not Westminster government, we choose self-government. We choose not isolationism, we choose internationalism. Never an island of strangers, always a continent of friends. Conference, our dear friend and my late colleague Christina McKelvey, the beloved partner of my Deputy Leader Keith Brown, left an extraordinary legacy. She championed the rights of the marginalised. She gave voice to the voiceless. But her passion stretched way beyond those of politics and the cause of Scottish independence. Christina wrote poetry. At her funeral, words she wrote so beautifully and so movingly were read out. Don't take the sunrise each morning for granted. Turn your face to her, soak in her power. To each day we step out, feet planted, with our strength aglow, we empower. Friends, Christina was telling us to make the most of each and every day. That sentiment matters now more than ever, because the country that Christina longed to see, and which she campaigned so hard to bring about, is in all of our hands. But that country has to be won. It needs to be won each and every day by the people in this hall, by those in the wider party and movement, and above all, by the people of Scotland. Because we are building a country for all of Scotland, a nation defined by fairness, where the sense of possibility runs deep through all of our cities, towns, villages and through every community. A country in which the saltire will flutter proudly, but gently, as a symbol of an inclusive, welcoming, compassionate nation. We know there are those who seek a very different future for Scotland. So each and every day, we need to be stronger. Each and every day, we need to be more committed, more driven by our love for one another and for Scotland, for the better nation we know is within our grasp. Each and every day, keep that vision in your mind and, above all, in your hearts. And together, let's win Scotland's independence. Thank you very much.